So for anyone who's new to the channel, I will just explain what we've been doing a little bit. I always go over this each stream. It might be a bit boring for everyone else, but I'll go for it anyway. So essentially we're doing a 60-second singular shot, which is a character traversing through a cyberpunk city, and she's trying to escape from the police because she's an assassin and she just took someone out. And the police in this scenario are robots. But I will add background characters later. I do plan on getting some rigs and just like set dressing, but kind of keeping their faces very vague. I don't want to steal the attention too much. But I would like to try and keep it all quite like anime themed. So I'll try and find some anime rigs. So if there are any interesting anime rigs out there that people know, ideally that are free, yeah, send them in the chat and I'll check them out. But again, I'm just thinking my head is always 2 steps ahead of where I should be. So with this in mind, I went through some of the shots in Akira and picked out specific images that I thought would be useful for like when I get into set dressing. So I'm like looking at these textures, seeing how the light responds to those textures as well. Because that's something I want to experiment with later is, am I going to actually use physical lighting, like actual lights, in the program, or should I paint the lighting almost as though it's baked, like it would be if you're in a video game? So do I paint the lighting into my textures? I think I might I'll probably start with physical lights in Maya or Blender. It'll probably be Blender. And then we'll go from there. But all these textures, like seeing the contrast between how flat the characters are versus the intricacy of the backgrounds is something I want to try and achieve. I was also looking at like the line work and seeing how I can replicate some of this line work so it feels not perfect, so not clean. Like some of this stuff has been cleaned up, but you can see where there's like slight, like, you know, distortions that I want to try and get in there. I really like the color script in this one. So there's a segment which we did a little bit earlier, which I can show you. I'll show you whilst it's loading, because it's still loading the scene. If I go to a previous play blast, I can show you which parts I'm referring to. So this scene around here, so this section, sorry, there's an add in bit of music. There's this section here. I want to try and make it look like this sort of coloring. So everything in the foreground is like yellowy pink, but then all the really big background drop stuff is going to be like these more bluey, purpley, greeny hues. And then what other things are we looking at? So yeah, again, just some good reference. Yeah, I like this contrast because it really makes the characters pop on screen. I was looking at how they've done plants and trees and foliage and like the textures on the fencing. And then this is some reference, like these colors where it's like the dark blues, dark bluey greens, and then the dark hot like red, sorry. I was going to use for a section that we're currently working on, which is this part. So as we come under, I want to have this all like these really dark, deep colors, so that she's kind of like, we just about catch her in the light, but then it's going to draw our attention down to these robots. Again, small color ref, and then this is some reference for the Ghost in the Shell stuff. So I have been looking at like, I want some of these scenes I really like just compositionally, so I'm trying to replicate them in my shot. So it's a very fast part of the shot, but there's a part near the beginning where she dives down through here, and I want to see if I can get some form of reference to, I'm going to make this deeper, so this is a much larger room, and I want to have this plant that's in the background here, and then these glass paneling that she slides down. Obviously it's going to be sliding the opposite way, but like, and the way the ceiling is, I want to literally try and replicate this room within this. And it's such a short moment, but if I can get the chair in the foreground or something in here in the desk, I've already found the assets. I just need to shade them and make the room bigger. This is reference for Major herself, and also, again, just looking at the line work and the shadows. I know this stuff might not be interesting for those of you here who are looking for the animation part, which we will get into in a moment. But I'm just going through my thought process because I'm considering this piece like a whole project where I'm basically making it from start to finish. So I'm always thinking ahead and taking notes of if I could even make this work, you know? Because it's all well and good saying, oh, I want to do this, but if I can't physically break it down into how I would do that, then I might be wasting my time, or I may need to approach it differently. So, thanks for the sub. Yeah, so I've just been looking through this, seeing how, like, the vehicles as well, because I have a couple of vehicles that will be animated in the foreground, so they'll also be cel-shaded. There you go, great, loads of subs coming in. Thank you guys, I really appreciate it. I even like the reflections here, how like some of this stuff is flat. So, and like you got the line work. So I want to literally try and make something that looks like this, is the final product. This is more for the backgrounds rather than the foreground. This is for like the hologram stuff. So this looks very 90s, right? Like the holograms, the way they project stuff feels quite flat. And like the interface feels very like early 2000s kind of matrixy. That kind of era, like 90s to early 2000s, I want to try and get that. So any reference I can find, I will try and replicate it. This is good for lighting, just seeing how the bloom is responding. And then I found some really cool pieces of scaffolding, like scaffolding models online. A lot of this stuff for you guys, just so you know, I've just been finding through CG Trader and TurboSquid. Which I'm sure a lot of you will be familiar with those websites. But it's basically you can just find loads of assets, and a lot of it is free, a lot of it is expensive. But I've been trying to find stuff that's free. I've already invested some money into like the main background, like the main sets, and sound, and the rigs, and that kind of stuff. So I don't want to, if I can be economical, I will. But yeah, I really like this, seeing like the architecture and all the scaffolding kind of makes it feel industrial. So, and like all these wires. So I found some really cool assets of scaffolding, which I'm going to use to set dress the backgrounds later. Again, this is just some cool color scripts, seeing how they're like painting the backgrounds where they're not as detailed, but they're implying it through certain brush strokes. This again, I really love these gradients, but they're not perfect. These aren't like perfect gradients. So, and then I really like how like this hot light from this light here, which is very saturated, is hitting against his arm, and how it's making these shapes, but they're not perfectly aligned. They're like slightly misplaced. So again, I'm going to have like, you know, with the police, there's going to be sirens going off. I want to try and replicate this stuff. And then I like the rain. I've got clips of rain in Ghost in the Shell as well. So there's a bunch of reference I'm looking at. And then while I had a little bit of spare time, I was experimenting with different texture packs as well. Which textures? No, that's the jacket. Where did I find it? Where did I put them? I was experimenting with this the other day. Is it dev tests? No. Sorry, I will find this for us. Brush textures. So I was experimenting with creating different like misplaced textures, which you can overlay color into, but I want to keep them black and gray for now. But just different textures that I'll use and experiment with for like the oily painting background stuff. This is for like some of the graffiti that I'll overlay into the textures. And then this is like some ref, which I'm going to try and replicate. So I like all these like where it feels like an actual brush stroke that's swept across, like some of it's wet, some of it's dry. So yeah, I want to try and get that stuff in there. This is kind of bridging some of those gaps that I like to do in my spare time. I like to paint stuff. So this is kind of the hybrid of my 3D animation side and my painting side. But yeah, without further ado, let's try one more time. Don't crash, don't crash. If it crashes this time, then I will just work. There you go. We'll save it like this. I don't want to go any further and then break something. I'll read the chat for a second to see if there's anything that people are missing. Yeah, get all the mishaps out of the way, exactly. Can physical and hand-drawn lights be used together? Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something that I'll experiment with. I'll see how I'll do the textures first, like a local color, and then I'll light it in 3D, see how it looks, and if it's not quite hitting the look of like how the lights actually respond to the objects within Blender, if it's not quite responding the way I intend it to, then I'll probably do a lot of like hand painted lighting. I want this to feel reminiscent of a 90s anime. And what I mean by that is there's not much, if you look at the references, things like Ghost in the Shell and Akira, they don't tend to use much squash and stretch. They exaggerate contrast a lot, and there's a lot of exaggerated timing and spacing, and they hold their poses a lot more, it's very tight. And we will be breaking that down before we dive deeper into in-betweens and that kind of thing. And I will exaggerate here and there because we're animating all of this to music. Let me just turn that sound a bit so I can hear myself think. But yeah, so we're animating to music, so it's going to have some challenges in terms of timing and spacing, but that's the fun part, right? But the point is I don't want to squash and stretch too much because I feel like that takes away from the aesthetic that I'm referring to. So that would be a fun challenge there. So there are some differences, but there are also some similarities between this and something like Kimuri. So we're carrying on from where we left off last stream. I haven't done any animation in between this time, and I intend not to. There was one segment of this shots that I did animate off stream a long time ago, which I kind of regret not having done that on stream now. So anytime I do want to animate, I'm keeping it on stream. So that way we can see the full process. And unfortunately, that part that I did animate off stream was probably one of the more exciting parts. It's the part where she's on the rope and she's swinging left and right, and then I'm having to animate the ropes and stuff. I did that, I think I was animating on Discord at the time, but I was just with some friends. But I digress. So what we can do, we've got the rig here. Let's find where we're going to carry on from, because we've done quite a big part in the last stream. I'll come back to this section later because I'm going to rework this. I did mention that I'll rework this section here because I don't like how slow it goes, and there could be a double beat in here rather than one. Then she climbs up, she goes into the air, he spins, she knocks his head off, hits the other robot, then she hurdles, cat passes over that sign, and then lands into this and grinds down. That's as far as we got last time. The next part we're going to do is her continuing to grind, then she jumps off of this wall. I'll show you in the scene. Cool. So we've just come from up here. We've cat passed over, we've slid down, and then from here, she's going to jump onto this wall, run along this wall a little bit, land onto this box here, and then she's going to jump off the box, and this is where we're going to do a new reference, which I don't know if I've referred to yet, but I'll explain it now. So, how many of you remember the scene in Star Wars Attack of the Clones? That's episode 2, where it's at night time, it's quite near the beginning of the film, and there's an assassin that tried to kill Padme, and they chase the assassin down through like the big cyber city, and there's like a big car chase, right? And there's one specific part of that which I find really cool, which is the robot that the assassin used to try and kill Padme is like this drone, and the drone spat out some bugs, and then the bugs try and kill Padme. But there's a specific part, I can find it since we've got YouTube here. There's a specific part of that I want to reference, which I find really cool, which is when Obi-Wan jumps out the window and he grabs onto the drone. This part. So he jumps out the window and he grabs onto this flying drone. Framing through this is probably going to be really CG heavy. But the idea is that he's catching onto this drone, right? And he's swinging through. So he's holding onto this thing, he's free falling through the air. And I kind of want to do a little bit of a reference to this, because as a kid, I was like, I don't know how old I was. I must have been about 9 or 10 when this came out. and this was like one of my favorite things. So that and the sonic charges, right, with the slave one, where it hits and it does the seismic charge, it goes and everything blows up. That bit's also really cool. But the point is that I want to have a reference in here where, you know, these little health bots we had earlier, so these little guys that pop up and do their little flying thing, I want to use those where you'll see earlier that one of them flew off to the right, and one flew off to the left. So the one on the right we continue to follow. This guy's on the right, he comes over, does his little hologram wanted poster. The left guy, we don't know where he went. So my intention is that when we get to this section later and we come down, we're going to find out where that robot went. Because that way it makes sense, right? We're like, oh, what happened to that one? So what happens is she comes down, she runs along this wall, she lands on this box, and then she's going to jump, and there's going to be the health bot, the little, well, they call it health bot in the rig. It's a police bot for us. But this little bot's going to be hovering here, scanning, like, maybe there's a set of stairs here, but the set dressing is off. But they'll be scanning something. She's going to jump and land onto it. So what I'll do, let's shrink this down a little bit so you can see where we're working. So let's go off from around here today. Or maybe from the contact there. We'll go from there, and then we're carrying on. And I'll turn on my temp ball so you can see our reference. So we slid down. Then we're running along the wall. We land down onto the box, and then the camera punches out. So we're going to expand this. It punches out, and then right now I just have it so that we display the car we're about to bump onto, and then the ball comes down and lands, right? So that's the part we want to animate today. But the part that is missing from this, which is an idea I've had that I just mentioned, is that right now, this section here, I initially just had her holding on to like the edge of the staircase and then swing underneath it, and that's what hoists her. But instead, I want to do something slightly different, which is that instead of holding on to these stairs, we're going to hold on to the health bot. So the health bot's going to come in, start scanning something, she's going to jump, grab onto it, and then she's going to use that energy to then twist and like hoist herself onto the car. So it's a little bit more engaging with other assets, rather than like always interacting with the environment, just to give it some variety. Which I think could be a little bit more interesting. So that's the intention. But before we get to that section, we do need to animate the part where we run along the wall. So this part here is the first part we're going to do today. But yeah, so yeah, we've already halfway into the stream and we haven't even started animating yet. But I wanted to show you guys a little bit of what's been going on behind the scenes before we go any further. Because, as you know, this is a very big project and takes a lot of planning. So I'll make sure we can see the cam frame there, so I can actually see what I'm doing. Yeah, because this is going now to load the ball. We don't need the ball anymore. I know where things roughly need to be at what time. So this is where we need to put a key, which we'll put later. We might do that a little earlier because we need to find our we need to set our key poses. And I think some of this posing I did mention, and I intend to slightly adapt some of this posing as we get into today's stream, because both the arm coming up and down here feels like there's a bit too much contrast in too short a space of time. So I will probably separate this stuff up a little bit in here today as we go into more in-betweens. Am I going to revisit the role before the kicks and the police bots off the head today? That's a good question. I've been contemplating whether we want to do that or if we want to start fleshing out other parts, because we can rework that later. So I think I'm more inclined to just continue moving forward today, But I do have it in the back of my mind, and I have the previous streams and you guys to remind me, hey, you missed that part. So in case I do forget. But I don't think I will. I think when I play it through, it's so apparent that it feels off to me that we will revisit it. But I'll probably do that once I fleshed out the rest. I just want to keep progressing. But it's a good question. Cool. So I do have my reference, which I'm going to need for this part, because there's a part where she kind of like rolls along the wall. But I found some cool parkour reference here, which I really like, where she slightly drops into it, so I can zoom in on it. So the idea is that at the head of this, we're like on the wall here. She's going to drop down, catch, get a bit of traction on her feet, then push off, run along, and then land on the box. Obviously, the distance that they're traveling is going to have to vary a little bit, but the idea, that's the idea. So if we need to rework the set to make that work, then we will. But for starters, I want to establish the main parts first. So the question is, which way do we turn? Because right now, she's facing with her back away from the wall. So as she turns onto the wall, it only makes sense that she turns like towards us. So she's going to rotate this way and then latch onto the wall. But then as she comes back around, do I continue that spin so that it flows in the direction? So then she continues to twist around, or do I have her come back on herself? So in other words, as we're going along this wall, like this, do we then turn, if she's facing this way along the wall, does she then turn back this way to then land? Or would it make more sense to continue that rhythm and have it spin around? It probably would just make more sense to have it spin around. So in other words, we want to be turning like this, 360 degrees for this landing. So it's this part here. I'm just going to save the scene before we start because I haven't created a new version yet. Cool. So what I'm going to do is I want to reset body. We don't need the temple anymore. Let's reset some of this stuff. On the arms and the legs, shoulders and the head. Let's just reset those rotations. Cool. So this is an FK right now on the legs. This is definitely going to need putting back to IK. And we've got one scaled foot right now. So let's also bring that back to normal. Which I always, for the life of me, forget which controller it is that does that. I thought it was one of these guys. Is it not in there? Oh, it's this guy, right? There we go. And then we've got these bend bones we can scale, so we'll also reset their scales. There we go. We're back. So, there's something going on with that leg, though. What's going on there? Is that leg translated or something? Yeah, it's translated. Okay, let's just reset the translates as well so I'm not breaking something. I only recently discovered this about Animbot, which I wish I'd known earlier, which is when you reset the button, like the reset button, you don't just have to do it for the whole channels. You can isolate it to translate, scale, and rotate, which is awesome. So if I don't want to like remove all my scales, then I can just press one button and it will only do rotates or whatever, which is really cool. So now we're in here. This is where we're landing. So I need to switch up the legs. The only thing I wish I had on this was an FKIK switch, but I do not. So I'm gonna have to just copy world space and then switch, which is the left leg into IK.
When it comes to video creation, every detail matters. I go to artlist.io.
Keep on getting the adverts on YouTube, which is annoying. What I should do is literally just download that entire video. So that I don't have to hear the ads every time I play it. And then we'll do the same for this one. So copy world space, switch to IK, and then paste back. Cool. And then the knee should still be in foot space. I hope. Is the legs in the knees in foot space? Yeah, they are. That's good. Okay, so we save this. Now let's come up with an antic pose. I need to come up with some poses for our key pose here. I bet you finish on animation version 50. Ooh, that's ambitious. I reckon it'll be more than that. We will see. I have a feeling it might be more like 70, something like that. There's a lot to do in here. Plus, if we're including crowd, not just her animation, like we've got the robots as well, we've got the rope. I reckon it's going to take some time. But just because that doesn't mean 70 streams, to clarify. I think we'll be versioning up a few times each stream. But I still feel like it's going to take some time. So I'm just going to go into my thumbnails quickly because I want to see if I did add anything here. I don't think I did. So we've got the kick. What part is this? I think this is the swing. This is later, this part. If it's going to be any one of these, because this looks like where we're starting today, right? This number 2 one. So this is where we're running along the wall. This is where we're landing. And then this is where we're kicking off. Yeah, so I actually didn't do a pose here. I didn't thumbnail anything for this part. So we have to come up with something. Yeah. I'm trying to think where we're coming from. That's the hard part. Because we haven't got that blocked out yet. I know in the ref, we have this run along. And that lands there. So this section here, in the reference, I'm not going to need. Because I'm going to make that up. But this pose here, I do like. I really like this pose. I like the line of action. I like the contrast, the asymmetry. Obviously, I'll clean up the clarity, but I like the pose. So maybe I can block that in and that will help me inform the antic. So we're coming down. We drop here. So I'll do a key here. And then we're pushing away, which is the breakdown. We come up. And then we're going to land. So this is the few keys that I'll start with, just so I know where they are in time. And then I can retime it later if I need to, but at least based on the ref. So what I'll do is I'm going to remain... do I want it in FK or IK here? It makes sense to do it in IK. So what I'll do is I'll take this pose. Let's bring it earlier. And then I can rebuild it back up. So put this in world move. So we came from there. So she's going to drop down. This is where it's interesting. I don't know if I want this then. This piece of Geo here. Because I want her to drop into this. So let's just move it. Where can I move that? Maybe I'll just bring it over a bit more. Because we're not going to hit this side. And it still makes an interesting composition and frames nice for her. We can rework it later if we need to. And then this, I just need to flip. Slight restaging as we're going through. Then I can take the verts. And just link that up here instead. Cool. Oops. Let's save that. Then I can block her position. So this is the antic. This is like the breakdown. So let's move her over. So she's going to be around here. We drop down. Put it around here. And then she's going to be facing away from us. So she came from this way. And then she's turning into it, yeah. And then I need to do the same for the legs. They also turn that way. Okay. So let's push her away. Her spine is pointing around this way. This is where, like, again, sometimes I use the ref more than others. Other times I rely more on thumbnailing. This is one of those scenarios where I liked what the ref did, so I'll probably lean into it a little bit more. So just getting the spine working. We are slightly away from the wall here. Now this is the hard part. The pose looks fine to the reference camera, but not to the camera we're using. So it's definitely going to take some adapting later, and I'll try and make it still look appealing. So this leg's coming up. This leg's pushing off. We're getting quite cluttered amongst all of the set now as well. Let's get a little bit of foot roll in there. Pointing the knee to push line of action a bit more. And then the head, do I want to lead round? I should probably lead with the head. The head's around here. Probably bring the neck forward a bit. Something like this. Someone calling me? No. Can ignore that. No personal work for me. This is very inspirational. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. You got a schedule for getting this finished? No. I've learnt that when I push myself to like do something by a certain time, my motivation doesn't quite work that way. However, one thing that does keep me motivated is doing stuff like this, right? The stream. So I'm being efficient. I'm not putting too much pressure on myself to get it done, but I know that if I have you guys wanting to see content like this, it definitely inspires me to keep going. That's really what's fueling me to keep pushing through all of this. So we have this arm pushing away. This one's tucking in. But yeah, I would like to get it done obviously as soon as possible, but within whatever I'm capable of doing within the time frame, just my schedule and stuff as well. It's tough. With teaching and all that stuff, as you know, it's a lot. So I want to try and keep that clarity. This is hard because I want to see both arms. I may have to raise the arms up a bit. I want to see those silhouettes. We're pushing away from the wall here. I'll probably keep one hand like this. We'll try this for now. Let's try and push the line of action a bit more as well.
Looking to cheat on your bed. Find the best time to
These adverts are really annoying. Go away. Thank you. Try and push the hips more. And then I can push the leg maybe in. And then we can just play around with some of these bends, just cleaning up the curve a little bit more. Something like this. So we'll try this for now, and then I'll add some hand poses as well. So I want the furthest hand to the right to be a little bit like folding off of the wall, like we're peeling off, and the other one can be loose. Just need to repath our library. Give me 2 seconds. Library. Save. Cool. So then these are our hands. So this is the left hand. So this is one that's going to be loose. Let's try this hand like this. And then this one's going to be peeling off. This one's splaying back more. Like this. So I'll try and find a way to make it feel like those fingers are slightly peeling off. Again, I might tweak some of this stuff later anyway. And then we're gonna hit, so this is where we need to make the down pose. So we're in the down, then we're pushing off. I actually quite like how the legs are separated here, and then it follows into one. It's like, you see how they're slightly more wide, and then they tuck in and cross over? I quite like this. So I want to see if I can achieve something like that. So let's ease in here to this pose. Yeah, I knew everything was going to break. The switches need to be snapped, as do the legs. And then we can rework those in a minute. So the legs, the body's come around to the right. Is that correct? Yeah. Body's come around to the right. So at this point, again, this is where it's interesting because my staging is planned for something slightly different. So it is going to take some adapting of the staging as we go through, which then informs the posing like we did last time. So this section is interesting because what we also did last stream is that I ended up retiming and restaging where the character was, which meant that we then needed to reframe the camera. And so we may have to do a little bit of that today. We'll see. But I would like to just get the poses in first. So let's have a leg here. The other leg was already snapped down. We wanted this to be wider. So she's going to be further over. And then this foot is more like here. And then we're pushing away. Let's reset the spine again. Lean her into it. Then I want her head to be looking up. Now she has her arms tucked in the ref here. So we're catching and then pushing through. So it's like we're grabbing onto something. I could always do that. I can add that in later. So that's actually quite cool. I wonder if this is the arm position. This isn't in IK right now. This is in FK. But I can use it as a rough position. If I just copy this, create a cube, paste it, I have a point of reference to aim the hands to. So in here I can probably lean the body back a bit more. Maybe straight up the spine so we feel the weights go into the body. And then we can reach the arms up. So let's just reset the arms again. and then we'll have them catch up. The only thing I don't like about this rig is the skinning on the shoulders isn't great, so this could maybe cause issues with line work later. So I may need to do some blend shape trickery there later. We'll see. But for all purposes now, we can have grabbing onto this. Again, I'll rework the posing camera once we get in there. So I try to, it really depends on the technique I'm trying to achieve, but for this, I usually do start with something that's like more 3D space, and then I'll rework the posing after. If I haven't gone in with a very clear visual. But yeah, we'll see how it looks. I do want to feel that weight come in, so I might actually have her drop lower so that that arm reaches this point a little bit more. We can show some weight really pulling. On the arm there. I might bring this shoulder in, I'm looking in the camera now, and simplify that shape so that we just see the arm on the other side, like that. And then we can tuck this hand in. So it's like we're grabbing from the similar point on the wall. And then she's tucking and looking over her shoulder. Now, in here, we are, like, this is because of the focal length, we are warping quite a bit. You can see how, like, it's not that warped in our perspective view, but in the camera it's feeling really warped. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but I just need to be conscious of that, and when I'm, like, reframing the camera and everything. Because that may, well, obviously it's going to change the posing, so in here I may slightly connect the hip a little bit more. Get a little bit more of a line of action wrapping around like this. Just feels a little bit more dynamic. And then I want to get the hand poses. I like this scrunchy one. And we're grabbing onto the walls. And then I might slightly cleanse, or like clench the fists a little bit more. So we just blend into that, into our fist shapes. Just to simplify that shape. Yeah, there you go, something like this. I'm curious, are you not doing any thumbnailing poses for this part? I have planned so much thumbnails to an extent, but some parts, like I say, some parts I rely a little bit more on the ref, and then I exaggerate with the mindset as though I was thumbnailing it. So it really depends. I think if you have a very clear idea of an action that you don't think you can trust in reference for, then I tend to thumbnail it. If there's like certain parts of this shot that have no reference at all, and I'm just going by thumbnails. There are other parts of the shot which I like the reference that I found, and it kind of keeps it a little bit more tied together, a little bit more consistent and grounded, and that's where I'll lean more into the ref, but I will make it feel as though it was all animated with the same approach by the end. Like, the idea is that by the end of it, you're not going to be like, oh, that part was reference, that part is not reference. Hopefully by the end, there'll be a blend between those two so that it doesn't feel obvious, like in the way it's posed. Like, even with the reference, we will be pushing things here and there, as though I was thumbnailing it. So there are slightly different approaches. Am I animating the feet in IK? I am. When they make contact with stuff. If they're free falling in the air, then I use FK. Here on the previous stream, you were talking about having more contrast in your spacing. Can you just explain? Yeah, so contrast in spacing is what I mean by that is the amount of tight, like how tight your spacing is. So when I say contrast in spacing, I'm talking about spending more time like favoring your key pose and then snapping through the transitions faster. That's what I usually mean by contrast, because there's more change, right? There's more change happening in a short period of time. So it's tighter spacing, in other words. Alternatively, you could also argue that some of your spacing, if you want to have contrast, you could have some that's really tight and some that's slightly more smooth. So there are slightly different mindsets that you can think about in that way. But yes, I would like to get contrast in my spacing. So some of it, because it's going to play with the rhythm, right? The whole part of the shot is that a lot of this is integral to timing and spacing. So some parts will be slower, some parts will be faster. There's going to be parts where it's like, and then we come into something else. And there's other parts where it's like, ba-boo, 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 kind of thing. So it's going to vary a lot in the timing and spacing. So I will stage this. Oops. I accidentally already restaged my camera. Did not mean to do that. There we go. Let's lock the camera down before I break something again. Yep, I already broke the camera. Excellent. What happened there? Coming down. What? Yep. What if I just delete that key? Where did that happen? Was it that one? No. Oh, there you go. It's fixed now. Let's lock the camera before I break something. So you come down. We're pushed away. So we got those two keys. And this is just a starting point. We'll build in the staging later and then rework the posing. So now I need to break down here as we turn into the drop. So I'll just go halfway for now into a machine and we'll see how it feels. But it does look like we're turning the wrong way, even though I deliberately made it so that that wasn't the case. Yeah, I want to turn the opposite way, for God's sake. So I need to reverse this. So we're already... If I just do that, will that fix it? It did fix it. Perfect. Now we're flipping to the other side. So we're turning into this. Now, I want to get quite a bit of contrast in here as we pull away. So this will be interesting because we've got a lot of foreshortening through this section. Now, because we catch and land, do I want to lead with the spine down? So in other words, I'm rotating the body into this. Ignore the legs for now. Lean the body in. And we want to lead with the twist in the chest, so I won't go full turn, because we can get the chest to turn in, lean forward. So we get a big lead on the head. It's probably too far. And then we're going to drag the legs behind. Let's tuck this leg in. So you can already see we're getting some big foreshortening in there, which is pretty cool. Drag those legs behind. Again, I'm experimenting. I'm not quite sure what I would like to do just yet. Why? Oh, there you go. FK. That's the one I was looking for. Come down, coming around. I do want to tuck this leg in more. But then I want to keep the arms behind, especially that right one. Maybe that can do a pretty cool swipe past camera or something in foreshortening. As that comes around. So we should have scaling. There we go. Get some cheeky swipe. And then we can take these parts on the arm, slightly scale those a little bit. And then get a hand pose in here. Maybe something like this, just a little bit of a splay. Scale the hand back up. That shoulder needs to be lower. And then we want to lead with that right hand into the catch. So this shoulder is going to be higher. Let's reset the rotation. That reset stuff, I'm telling you, it's a godsend. Reach that arm out. I do need to, oh, this is interesting. I need to connect the chest a bit more back to what the arms are doing. Just to tie that gap a little bit more. And then this hand, oops, that's the bake control. On this hand, let's have slightly more relaxed arm pose. Clean up our silhouettes. So we're coming around and then we land in. Now, do I lead with this leg more? I guess we'll see how tight we go in the in-between. I think for now, it should be enough. It just means in here, maybe we don't drag this arm as much. That hand is getting quite flat as well. Let's just get a pose more like this. There we go. Comes around. Then let's ease this hand out. Comes around and catch. And then pushes away. Yeah, this is enough for now, I think, and then we can add some in-betweens to flesh this out a little bit more. Breaking the camera is an integral part of the process. Yes, it is. So contrast and spacing is also the rhythm thing. No, rhythm is the timing. So rhythm is where key poses land in time, to establish how the beats play out, but then your spacing is accommodating to your timing. Um, so, say for instance, if you want a fast action and it lasts 6 frames from one pose to the next, then you're having to accommodate your spacing to work within those 6 frames. Therefore, you may need more contrast. Whereas if you have timing where your beat is only 20 frames, or like 20 frames long, then you have more frames to work with to accommodate your spacing. Therefore, you may not have to go as contrast and extreme to define your ease ins and outs within that spacing. Does that make sense? Because when you have a shorter period of time, it's harder to communicate how one thing transitions to the next. Therefore, you can't really make your spacing too tight, because then it happens so quick, the change, that you don't read it. So when you have more time, arguably you might have more time to add more contrast because you read the change happen for a bit longer. So that's where timing and spacing go hand in hand with each other. Like they're not the same thing, but they do work together. So this is going to be another interesting part. So we've pushed away, we're coming around here. So in the graph editor again, this needs to be a 360. So let's flip this. There we go. So now we're turning around. This is where I'm being a little bit... There you go. So this is where we're being more creative. Now we're taking away from the reference. The only thing I used from that reference was these two poses. The catch and the push away. But as we get through this part, now we're going back into like thumbnail territory. The irony is I didn't do thumbnails. So there's going to be a bit of interpretation involved, in other words, as we come around. Now, I actually quite like the idea of compressing in here a little bit more as we push away and then bunch around. So I'm going to curl up the spine a bit more. That's way too contorted. The skinning on this rig isn't like a way that you would expect it to be. There's like different weights at different parts of the body, so it can be a bit misleading. So we've come away, we've pushed here. Now that right leg is coming through. Could do something like this. As the leg comes around and tucks in. Looks kind of cool. It's quite graphic. Quite like this. And then the arms are peeling away. We can get rid of that box now. The arms are peeling around. Let's bunch up the shoulders a bit more. And then this one can still be peeling back. Looking at the hand poses, seeing how I can make it interesting. So this is the left hand. We'll go with this for now. Again, a lot of this might change. There is something on her face controls which is broken, which has been annoying me for the longest time because it makes her face look warped. So I might just go in and quickly clean that, because then it's not going to bother me for the rest of every other stream that we do. But it is in her head controls. On her face, master primary, face controls. Somewhere in here, something's been skewed. But I don't know where. If I just select all these controls, let's turn off all the body for a second. Sorry, it's going to bother me otherwise. So those are all primary. Let's turn that off. Select all this and just make sure we... What is it then? Is it this? There we go. The translate on the upper head was offset. That's better. That was annoying the hell out of me. And you can see that value has changed everywhere. So I just need to take all of this and snap it back. To this. No! Everything on the upper head. There you go. Take all those translates, set that back to 0. Not 1, 0. 0. Oh my god. Thank you. Was that so difficult? There we go, we're back. Now I can put the controls back on. Let's turn off the face. And these guys were primary. Cool. And then we're going to land down. Now, this actually might be a good opportunity. I want to see what the... So I do have a couple of clips here from the style reference. Maybe we can just steal something from Ghost in the Shell. And by steal, I just mean I'm referencing, obviously. But it's also stealing. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Animation style. 90s anime style. So I found some clips. And we'll just see. There's one that came to mind. But you can see this stuff here. And then it falls like this shot. The pose may not be excellent, but the point is you can see this, the timing and spacing is quite tight. So holding the pose, swing through, and then we catch on the other side. And there's a part in here in a minute. Here we go. Ding! 3-point landing, but it's with the arm up. It's kind of cool. Still looking down. Obviously she hasn't settled. She is in like an engaged pose. So maybe we can reference something like this. So I'm not gonna copy the pose. Like obviously I have it in my head now, the memory of it. But I'll see what I can come up with. The hard part is that we have this box isn't really far out, so maybe we just scale this a little bit. So that's a little bit deeper. Gives us something to work off of. And then also those pieces in there. I need to select. Bring those back out. Cool. Save that. Yeah, the shoulders aren't great on this rig. I do agree. She spun around so fast, gravity pulled her face. Yes, I have seen Evangelion. Yeah, it's awesome. It was yeah, you should you should rewatch Ghost in the Shell. It's awesome. Uh, yeah, Evangelion was a trippy one. I've been recommended to watch it for years, and I didn't really get around to it until recently. And by recently I mean like the last 2 years. But it was an interesting ending. Shall we say that? No, it was cool. It was just really. I got to a point where I was like, "What the hell is going on here?" Then I was like, "Well, now I have to watch the movie to actually understand what happened." And the movie did help explain things, but it's not perfect. Like, it doesn't wrap up everything in a nice tight bow. But I definitely got the impression at some point the director went a bit off the rails on some weird like psychological. Now, do I open up that way or do I open up the other way? No, I think I like this way. So let's lean her body forward. Tuck the hips under. Upper body goes down. I'm going to keep her head locked up though. Just a little bit more than what the ref does.
Artlist.io and get everything you need, all in one place. Music recorded by real artists.
And then this arm will keep up. I'm just playing around with the pose now. So I'm not really liking the asymmetry here, unless I do something like this. I'm unsure. I could just keep it below her side so we don't see it. Like, we just hide it. I think sometimes seeing less is better. So let's just actually hide that, and then we can twist the other arm in. But yeah, the shoulders on this rig aren't perfect. This is kind of nice. Something like this, you see the hand slightly coming out. This feels like a slightly Ghost in the Shellish pose. And then we'll just bring a hand pose into this. Bring the neck slightly over. What's happening? Is that the knee there? Yeah, it's the knee. So let's bring the foot forward. Maybe the root slightly back. So we're not intersecting. Something like this. So then from here, we're pushing away. Let's tighten up this. So we're bringing it further over screen left. Now, so coming through, do I hold? Which leg's going to come down first is the question. Probably the right leg. So we can adapt to this pose now slightly. And then I might tweak the angle of the root itself to be the opposite in Z. It lands a bit cleaner into it now. I think that works. Dunk, dunk, dunk. Okie dokie. So we've done that section for now. I think this push off, I'm going to need to establish a little bit more in here. Right now, the timing actually works really well to the sound, because if I just turn off the music for a second, you'll hear it. So for that part, the landing here on the clunk, hear the dung there, and then there's like a little bass boof there. So the timing actually worked out super coincidentally well, which is nice. The only thing, like I say, I might add an in-between here just to define some lead and follow, and I might need to retime it slightly. But what I'm going to do is I'll ease out of this in here, and to keep the body close to the wall as we lean into it. And turn. And I want to keep that foot on the wall for longer. I'm going to have to tuck that in. And then drag this one behind. Starting to work. The only thing is hard is keeping that hand contacting the wall. It's almost gonna have to let go earlier. So in here, let's release the hand. And then do a loose hand pose. Then we're coming through. I'll clean up the poses when we go into blocking plus. I just want to define some of this section a little bit more as we're going through. So the legs will break here because we're going from FK to IK, which isn't a problem. Now in here, I do want to continue to lead with the chest. And then this needs to be higher. That spacing. Then we're dropping down and landing. So where are the arms? There you are. The arms have made contact already. And then the legs, we can snap this into position. And then we'll tweak from here. So we're now already in IK. So we're leading through with the right leg, which is what I expected. This leg needs to catch early. The left leg can slightly delay. Try something like this, it's quite graphic. And then we can play around with some of the weight in here. So we ease out and begin to push away. So this comes down here. Let's tweak this pose so that we're still swinging through. Then it comes in. Catch. And then save this before I go any further. So we catch, we're coming down. Now, I do want to lead into this. So if I'm swinging my body, do I antic? Do I want to antic that? Would come down. Do I just lead into it more? So that I begin to lead through with the body. So we can do a bit of a tilt like this. And then we push into the breakdown. Just thinking about the momentum and how we're leading the action. And then here we can favor the hang time a bit more as we come through. So were we leading with the twist? Yeah, we are leading with the body. So something like this. Head can lead. This leg pushed up is coming through. So again, that's what I mean by tight spacing, hitting the poses early. Thank you. So coming around. This leg needs to be further through. I think this one could be more profile here. And then let's take off. For some reason there's still foot roll. In there. And then I need to tweak some of the spacing on the arms, because they're coming round. And then we want to hit on this arm early, because that's peeling away. And then following through. If I keep everything to one side, then it comes through. Coming around and up. Tweak some of the posing on the arms. I don't like the skinning on the shoulders. That shape is looking really ugly. There you go. We'll just hide it completely. It's one way to do it. Get a bit more bend in the spine. The angles do not help in camera view. And then the hand pose here. Let's push this a bit more. Let's try splaying it. So it comes around that arc, then comes through. And I do not like this hand pose. Move flat like a paddle. So let's loosen that up a bit. I think that works. And then we have the landing. Then I'll create a little in between in here. And then we go tight down. So we'll snap this foot into place. Legs down already. So that she catches her weight. Would be nice to get a bit of a lead on that arm coming through as well. I just want her to feel controlled. She comes down. Then we can splay out the hand a little bit more in there. There you go. It's quite nice because the weight still feels like it's shifting over onto it. So if I really want to tie this down, I can add an extra in between because it'll be super fast. Where we can just get a little overshoot on the weight. So it comes down heavy in here. And then she shifts in. She gives it a little bit of weight. And then I'll compensate the arm a little bit just to keep the contact. Probably going to have to be a bit more than that. This is where IK can be useful, but I'm so used to posing in FK now that it's not a huge deal to me anymore. Now it does slide though. I don't want it to slide. Something like that. And then we can slightly drag the forearm, get a little bit of follow through. And voila! Leading with the head, keep the head down, then it comes up. Cool. So what I'll do is I need to slightly reframe the camera. What I'll do is in here I do want to drop the camera slightly. It's not going to be a huge change. I don't want to like change the translations or anything too much. It's just tracking the animation, right? Tracking the character. So we've come down here, we're dropping through this section. Let's just have it aimed down a bit.
When's the last time you were really at 100% at work for 8 hours?
And then it's coming through here.
List, little tasks that get you distracted, and just the mental
gonna drop.
organizing your day take a big toll on your productivity. Then you usually work.
Sorry about the ads. And then catches up, hangs. I think even here we're going a bit too high anyway. Stays up, lands down here. And then we're in the center, so it should be fine. Yeah, that works. I'll play blast that, just see how it feels. And then we can do the drone part. I also noticed we've got free falling head of robot still in the shot from the previous section. So I need to fix that. Robot headlock, this guy. So this one, you just need to, let's just hide him. There you go. So we don't see him later. I think I want to delay it, to be honest. I'm now looking at the timing. I want to hold in this for longer. And then we have the dun 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 dun. We still hit all this at the same time. Like, where we end is the same. Near enough. So what I'm going to do is I'll save this, save a new version, and then we'll retime it and see how it feels. Because I can already tell when I play blast that it felt wrong to, like when I was scrubbing, I could tell it felt wrong. So around here, we're moving this. So this is all fine. Here needs to be faster. And we're delaying it. So maybe this sound here is where we hear the kunk. There. This is faster. Still like the dung there. Slightly retiming it. Still later. That feels better. This needs to be faster. Maybe I add an in-between in here, just so that we settle into the final pose. And then I'll create a little bit of an arc. So just drop it down a touch using the nudge tool, and then we can slightly blend the arm back. Just to keep contact. There you go. And then I do want to get a bit of follow through on the arm here. So we'll add one in between, which is going to ease out of the body. That comes through. That leg in Z doesn't feel like it should be in Z, but I'll roll with it. That arm needs to follow through. This is the main beat. We want that arm to follow through. And we're going to twist the body out of it slightly. Oops, what happened there? There we go. That arm remains the same wherever it was. Leave with the head more. So track my spacing, my arcs on the arm here. Round. Shoulder needs to be back. Okay, I think that should work. There we go. Cool. So now, in theory, that should be that section done. But I will play blast, that's the double check. So we want to snap to there. Let's save that, and then we'll play blast. Let's just play it and see how it feels. I'll put the sound on. I mean, it's definitely fast. I almost want to hold a beat there longer. I am unsure. So this, let's make this faster. And just ease into this. Yeah, we could push off with the opposite. There was two reasons why I didn't. One was because this leg was already up, so it could lead into this one, and then you get a pose more like this with this one dragging. Otherwise, this breakdown would look different. And then the other one was I liked how we're pushing off with the foreshortening here, so this one's more to camera. So it feels more in line with the style. However, in here, it does feel off the push with this one. We're almost like dropping into it, which was partly the intention because she's going to catch here. So she's leaning down towards something. But yeah, it might be a case where this leg isn't leaning back as much. Oops, not this one, the other one. It could be more like to camera like this. Looks kind of cool. doesn't feel as unnatural to push off. I guess the intention would be that if you were pushing off with the front leg, you're trying to get height. Whereas if we're pushing off with the top leg, then you're dropping down, and the intention is to drop down. So that's my logic in why I did it that way. But I do get your point. It doesn't feel natural to push off with that top leg, because then you would push off away and up, right? But yeah, that's why I had her leaning down here, because then it feels more like she's leaning to grab something, and then that back leg comes through and catches. It's also just variety, because we already lead with this leg here. Like if we're catching with this leg here, then the next time round we're catching with the other leg. So again, it just adds variety. So I feel like I'm gonna kind of stick with what I've got for now. But yeah, we'll see. This is what I mean by like it's interesting the timing though, because when I played that, it did feel fast, but it was to the sound, which is the challenge. So how do you make it feel plausible and to the rhythm without breaking your mechanics? I think there's time in there, so I might slightly slow it down in here. This part. Let's slightly slow this down. Just by a frame each key. Because in here, we're going to jump onto the... I want to see what the temp ball is, because that's also helping my rhythm, my planning. Yeah, because they're already jumping off here. I can begin to ease out at this stage, so I think it will work. I just have him settling here, because we started a key pose, and I was just easing into it. But we can already begin to transition easing out of this pose, so that we're kind of blending one key pose into what was an ease in, to then settling back out again, so it never really settles. So we can do that. That'll be the next thing to adapt. But that's quite normal. That's what happened at the beginning of this stream. We had the key pose around here, but now see how we've transitioned, so we never really settle. We're still following through. But yeah, this does feel a little bit fast. There. This needs more time. Where the accent happens is good. I think this might work. I'll play this. I was just shifting around some of those keys just to get the feel for the timing. And then we'll see whether it works. Because we do need to transition into that health bot part. I quite like it. I think the punch out of the camera whilst we swipe has like a really fun energy to it in here.
Driving test in weeks with National Intensive. Don't waste months.
I quite like it. I think now that I've tweaked that timing, it feels better. I think before it was too fast. Yeah, I like this. We can transition to the health bot stuff. Yeah, I can add an antic in there for sure. Yeah, it'll definitely help. I think once we get into like some more in-betweens, we can layer some of those little subtle things in there as well. I think that will make it work. Now the big part of this section so we've got to here. Is here. Up to the ding. So this is a fairly chunky section of the shot. Like this one beat. Which we're talking... How long is that lasting? Yeah, it's just under 100 frames. So, you know, we're talking about 3.5 seconds-ish. This is just for one beat. Yeah, thanks so much, man. It's getting there. Yeah. You can see how it happens in the ball. So there's a big hang time in here. Dun 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 bum. So again, I had a loose idea with my thumbnails as to how I want to play this out. The hard part with this, when we're talking about thumbnails like we were earlier, is at this stage, when you've got a shot that's 60 seconds long, you're not going to have a tight thumbnail plan for the entire thing, or at least I'm not. You might, if you're really thorough, you might do. But I had broad stroke ideas and concepts, and I thumbnailed ideas based on the general traversal as to how those poses were actually going to work. I wasn't like 100% glued into them. It was more just, okay, at this stage, this kind of mechanic happens. And I'd still thumbnail. It was more just to give myself a roadmap. But I knew that some of these mechanics and ideas were going to change as I go through. And I trusted my sensibilities through just like going through the process of animating to come up with some of those poses and not have to worry about having to have them glued down in thumbnailing. So that's where this is kind of like readapting, and we're just coming up with concepts as we go through. So I do need to get health pot number 2 in here, so I've got to find him now. So actually I do need to, so that's 1056. Let's scrub back. So which health bot are we looking for? This guy. So all the things on this rig, he leaves. So I'm just going to put a key here for now. So this kunk here is where he's going to push off of the health robot. So before that, he needs to be in the right place. So it's around here. We need him to be in the right spot. Now, I don't actually think my picker is working very well for this guy. Yeah, for some reason, some of it's working, some of it's not. I don't know why. There you go. So some of this stuff works, but other parts of it apparently do not. Like you can see there. But I've keyed it anyway. So now I just need to put it into a position. That makes sense. So we're under here. Now, proportionally, we also have to actually just see how big this thing is compared to the character, because I haven't even really planned for that. And what I might do is have the robot like here, looking up and scanning this thing, like it's doing a little, you know, in what is it? I'm trying to think what it's from. The little drone in The Incredibles when they're in the cave and it's trying to scan to see if Mr. Incredible is dead. Mr. Incredible terminated. Cave. This part. Trying to find the bit where he goes in the water. Here we go. So he's hiding. He finds Gazer Beam is dead. He sees Kronos, and then this thing comes in. This stuff. Click, 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 click. Shoop. It's trying to see where the person is. The idea is that this drone is going to come into the under the stairs and it's going to scan this stuff and try and find. It's going to look at the staircase, scan the scan the staircase, and then that's when she comes in out of nowhere and grabs onto him and then like uses him to traverse. Yes, I did make the pickers myself, but it's not working. It was working. I don't know what happened, but yeah. So the robot does need to roughly be in a good position to scan this stuff, because she's got to drop in and catch this thing. She's leaping onto it. And just for context here, this is a staircase, but we don't quite see it. Now I'm trying to think compositionally as well, because she's going to dive onto this thing. So where the ball is, you can see it coming on. It's all quite stacked over each other right now. So maybe I slightly changed the composition. It might be the camera staging needs to adapt. Yeah, I think I might have to. So what would be the best position to make this work? I think it might need to be further toward us. Maybe scanning. It could be on the actual staircase itself, like rather than the other part. So if I just turn on, I'll save this. I'll turn on the. Cool. So now we got the set dress in. So you can see the stairs, right? So these are the things that we're scanning. So we can position robot further along, aiming up at these stairs. I keep pressing select all on this rig because I think, yeah, I can select that, right? Apparently not. So this is going to be the interesting part. What do we do mechanically that's going to be interesting as to how she grabs this thing? You could do the 2-point grab, right? So like if I were to thumbnail over this, let's grab this. I'll bring it over to my other screen and then we can sketch over it. And people can come up with some fun ideas with me. So let's turn that off. I'll bring this over to my other screen. But you guys did this Twitch, so let's switch up our screen. You guys should see this now. Cool, so now I can sketch. So let's see what we can come up with, right? So the typical thing would be that she catches and then, you know, she's got 2 arms, she's up here catching on this robot and then she's swinging through or whatever it might be, right? Something like this. Like that's the typical thing to do, but I've already done a lot of mechanics like this where it's like 2 hands down, she leads through with her legs and then she comes through. So I kind of want to do something different. Now you could do the 1-arm grab where she's like this. Like this is potentially an option where she's hooks around one side like that. So she comes through and she's grab and then swings through or something. You can do a twist that could come around like this. That could be a fun option. Like I can make it so that she jumps and the initial trajectory is going to be quite direct. So she leaps forward, grabs, and then from there you might have, it might even overshoot. That could be cool. Ooh. I just had an idea. Right, hear me out, guys. What do you guys think to this? This could be pretty fun. I actually quite like this idea. So, very iconic. Again, there's a lot of movie references this stream. It's quite fun. So, and you're kind of getting a feel for my types of film. But I do have references to The Matrix in this. And by extension, The Matrix was inspired by Ghost in the Shell. So it all kind of ties together. Now, what if... So there's a famous scene in The Matrix Reloaded, the second film, where he fights all the Smiths, right? There's lots of agents and he's going around and it's all crazy and it's like super heavy CGI and it's all mental. There's one specific iconic moment in that where he is... he hits the pole. He has like a pole in his hand. I'll show you now. There's a pole in his hand and then he's kicking off of all the Smiths that are surrounding him. I think, yeah, here we go. We're about to go into it. And we're spinning around. So, hear me out, guys. Imagine something like this. But if we go back to our shot. So she dives through. She grabs on with one hand. Maybe it's her right hand. So she's come through. And she's overshot. So we have 2 points. So she's over here, hands out, diving off. Out this way. So she's diving. Then she's caught. So at this stage, there's probably going to be some overlap. Where she's come through. She's come out the other side. This is her arm. Legs come through. And we're going to swing into it. So like she's come out this way. This arm could be free like this or whatever. I'm just making this up right now. But we're overshot. So we've come out the other side. And then from there, ignore the adverts on my YouTube lo-fi. It's really annoying. I need to get my ad block doesn't reason for some reason. My ad block doesn't work for some reason. There you go, English. But the idea is that we're going to come out like this, and then it overshoots, and we swing around, like we pivot on this thing. So it comes out, we do a hard turn, and then as we come round, it might be tighter than this. It might be more like this. We come up, and then land on the car. So we come out, overshoot, swing, throw. So there's like an extra, and during the swing we can do the leg kick, right? So she's coming around going 1, 2, 3, and then land down. So if we play that in Play Blast form, maybe it'll make a bit of sense. You could step on the robot. Yeah, we could like do a leapfrog thing or a surf. They're all great ideas. I'm just trying to think about I do like the stand one, but I think you'd need to go higher in the jump for that, and there's an obstacle in the way, so that might not make sense. Just from a staging perspective, but it is a fun idea. Could do the Tarzan swing. I want to try and keep it quite controlled though. Yeah, and then stabilize holding with the second hand's cool idea. I do like the surf as well. They're all cool ideas. I think it needs to stay in the same spot. That's a big part of it. So the standing in that sense makes sense, but the height to get onto the stand don't think will work. YouTube has been fighting against Adblock. I recommend Unblock Origin. I switched to that one. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll check that out. So we've done all this section. So you can see we're quite far through the shot now, guys. Like, if we look at the grand scheme of blocking, we're now here. So we're just under 3/4 of the way through. If around 3/4 done of blocking, and then we can get into the fun stuff. So I reckon we'll get through this last section hopefully a bit faster than the earlier parts. So here, we jump off, we're going to land. Originally, we're hooking onto this thing, so it's going to be more direct. So again, if I were to draw over this, oops. This is our staging. So we started off here. We do have a ball. We start off here. We come through. Let's just draw the robot as well. So robot's here, scanning up on this thing. This little siren and this little flame thing. So if this is our character, we start off here, we'll treat it like a ball. So it starts off here, we leap through, we catch on, so we catch here, we overshoot, so we're getting bigger. This needs to be bigger. We overshoot, we come around, and we're going off in a circle. And there's like a lot more foreshortening and it feels dynamic. And then we can come around, get bigger, hoist up into the air, come up, hold in this space, and then land down into this. Does that make any sense to anyone? Like, trying to think how I can just describe this with arrows. So it comes down, catches, comes around, like this. That's the idea. I think that'll work. Use Brave, it's ad free. Okay, good to know. Yeah, I'll check this stuff out. Thank you guys. Right. Got Healthbot and we've got Legolas, who is our main character. So they're going to be on the other side of each other. So starting out, move this out of the way. Healthbot's here. She's here. So she jumps through, jumps, catches, swings into camera, comes around, and then it's going to drop down. Then she leaps up like this into the air, hangs, and then comes down here. Does that make sense? Slightly. So I'll try and do that again. Goes whoop, boom, whoom, whoom, round, up, and then here. I think I did that right. I did it with looking at this and rather than the camera. Actually, it helps and it looks pretty sick. Cool. I'm glad that worked. Yeah, so we'll give that a go and then see how it feels. Then this is where it goes T-pose. So we dive, catch on, drop, swing, come around, then come up, and then land. And then it continues. So let's see how this plays with sound. I think it works, right? I've put the legs in FKE now because they're not touching the ground. So anytime they're free and they're not contacting anything, I would put it in FK, yes. I think this has given us a good roadmap for the next stream, where we'll dive and do the swing and then the landing. We are slowly chiseling away. I think we've made decent progress today, considering, and we've made a good plan. But yeah, I think from this point we'll leave this till the next stream to do the next dive, so that I know I'm not worried and pressuring myself for time. But in the meantime, yeah, thank you all for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe to Twitch, and also you can see my YouTube channel at the bottom there as well if you want to see any of the catch up on the previous streams. will all be on there as well, and they'll just be under the playlist for CYBERPHONK. Can I show my shot from the start? Yeah, I can show it. Up to the point where we got to today. So this is 46 seconds of 60. But yeah, in the meantime, thank you everyone for tuning in, and I will post in advance when the next stream will be. I usually just do it whenever I get the time, and so I had a spare afternoon today. But yeah, in the meantime, hope you all have a good one, and yeah, looking forward to the next one. Stay tuned, guys.